It's Saturday morning, December the 3rd, 2022, and it's a joy to be able to share some thoughts with you from the scriptures. Again, today I'm Pastor Mike Custer, the pastor of Bible Baptist Church in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and this morning we're going to read Proverbs chapter 30, verses 13 and 14. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 13 and 14. Here the Bible says, "There is a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes, and their eyelids are lifted up." And in verse 14, "There is a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, and the needy from among men." And we spoke a little bit about pride yesterday, which is about verse 12 and 13. Lofty eyes, and verse 12 speaks of people who don't even see that they're filthy, and so they can't be washed from their filthiness because they're lifted up in pride. And the Bible speaks again in verse 13 about being lofty in their eyes, their eyelids are lifted up. And pride really is at the heart of so many of our issues, our spiritual issues. And it's almost touted as if it were a good thing, like, you have pride in yourself. That's good that you'd have pride in yourself. Whereas the Bible says that there's no good reason for us to be proud of ourselves. Anything good that ever happens in us is due to God's goodness and God's love and God's mercy and God's kindness. And He deserves the glory for anything good that happens in our life. And so pride doesn't produce good results in the lives of people who embrace it. The Bible says there's a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes, their eyelids are lifted up, and pride will cause them to resist the Spirit of God and even reject truth. The next verse, verse 14, speaks of this generation whose teeth are as swords, their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth and the needy from among men. And this speaks of people who don't care about others, who care only about themselves, people who are selfish, people who are violent. And aren't we seeing a rise in this sort of thing in our culture today, of people who disassociate themselves from caring about other people? We talk about the sociopath who doesn't feel anybody else's pain for himself because all he cares about is himself. And psychopaths and others like them who have all kinds of emotional issues, and they naturally turn to violence because they don't care about other people. And this is all rooted originally in pride. People who care only for themselves, who don't care about others, and they don't think about how other people will be affected by their actions. They don't think about how others may be hurting as a result of their carelessness. This is a terrible plague, scourge on the human family, and it's almost reaching epidemic proportions today, where people just don't really seem to care very much about others. In Grand Forks, we have this saying that people are North Dakota nice, and it's true. There are a lot of thoughtful people, a lot of kind-hearted people who will go out of their way to help you. I'm sad to say that doesn't seem to be true in a lot of other places around the country and around the world, where people actually will give of themselves to bless others. Instead, they're so self-focused, they don't care much about other people. And that's what this Bible verse is describing in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 14. This new generation of people, this generation that rises up, and I'm thinking about the generation after Joshua and his people, who didn't even know the Lord. Another generation arose, and they didn't even know anything about God. How is it that that happens? I don't know. I don't understand it. How can people not share the truth that they know of God with their children? But this is something that occurred in Bible times nonetheless. And this sort of thing gives rise to a self-focus and will actually create a generation who are violent, who don't care about other people's feelings and don't care about anything but themselves. What a sad state. Let's teach our children better than that. Train them to be compassionate and to be concerned about others. Most of all, train them in the things of the Lord, that they would love God with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their mind. And if they're tapped into God himself, they'll have the love of God working in them. You can't know God without loving God and without being partaker of many of his great attributes, one of which is love. Just be concerned and unselfish towards others. God bless you today.